You don't need to run crazy simulations in order to get cool muzzle flares. Stop doing that. I mean, you can do it if your computer can handle it, but this is another cool way to do it. All right, the first thing that we're going to do is go to the barrel of our gun. You can use whatever gun you want. I have this gun blade that I modeled recently, and I have here at the very tip, I've alt selected the vertices there. And what I'm going to do is Shift S and cursor to selected. Set the cursor there. Now I'm going to get out of edit mode here, and I'm going to Shift A, and we're going to add in a cylinder. This cylinder can really kind of be whatever resolution you want. I'm just going to leave it at stock resolution, and we're going to scale this down. We want it to be pretty much the size of our barrel. Scale it down a little bit more here. I am going to select the, in edit mode, the top and bottom faces, and I'm going to X those faces. We're going to get rid of them. Now I'm going to get out of edit mode, rotate on the Y axis by 90 degrees, and loop select this edge here that's sticking out. To loop select that, and I'm just going to extrude it out. This is going to be our, which I can focus on that. This is going to be our flame. So hit extrude on the X-axis, or whatever axis is pointing directly out of your barrel. I'm going to have this come out to really as far as you want the flame to go out. This is a rather long barrel. I think that towards the end of the blade, the flame should kind of stop. And I have this set to my quick favorites. So I'm going to hit Q and do grid fill, but you can also hit F3 and search grid fill, and Control F, I think, also grid fills. We're going to just grid fill this end. We're not going to grid fill the other end because we're not going to see the other end. And what I'm going to do here, you can kind of get that offset to be a little bit more vertical. You don't have to. I'm going to press 1 for the vertices. I'm going to grab this vertice, and we're going to hit O, or you can come up and click this for proportional editing. Hit O, I'm going to hit G, X, and I'm going to pull this out, but it looks like my ring of selection is a little too big. I just want to round this off a little bit, just a little bit, and like that. That's fine. Tab and auto smooth. This isn't really going to be seen that much. We're just going to be using the volume of this. Back in edit mode, I'm going to hit Control R, and we're going to add a few loop cuts here. 6 should be fine, and you can just place those at a decent spot. And continuing with the proportional editing, I am going to grab this loop. Let's see, got to zoom in here a little bit. Let's grab that loop, and I'm going to scale this up. Let's get our proportional editing a little bit bigger. We're just going to scale this up. We can bring this down right about there, and we can go a little bit bigger. Let's do that, and then scale it again, and right here, and we'll bring that middle part up a little bit more, like that. Should be fine. So it really kind of pops out there, right? Now I am going to come back here, and we're going to go back and make sure this is round. We don't want it to flatten at the end. We want it to kind of taper off a little bit. So let us go G, and we'll scale this down. Scale that down. That should be fine. That should be more than fine. It's perfect. So we have our flame geometry here. And what we're going to do with this flame geometry is we're going to come down to our shader tab, and we're going to create a new material. I'm going to call this Fire 1. And you can name it whatever you want, but we're going to get rid of this principled SDF here. So exit that, and into the volume, we're going to add a emission shader. And the color of the emission shader is going to be a color ramp, and this color ramp is going to be whatever colors you want your flame to be. So if you want to do like a laser gun, you can have like blues and purples and greens, whatever colors you want. I want mine to be fire because this is more of a fire. And so I'm going to do an orange, and I'm going to do a deep red. And the red is, yeah, it should be fine. I'm going to bring those kind of close together right here. Now the strength of this, I'm going to pull out into a noise texture, the factor of a noise texture. And we can see what this looks like by shift clicking on it if you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, which you should. And so we're seeing that texture. Now what we do want to do with that texture is we're going to go Shift A, color ramp, and we're going to put that right here and shift click on that, Control Shift click on that to see what that looks like, because we really want to tie this down. And anywhere that there's white is where this color is going to emit, and anywhere that there is black is going to be transparent. There's going to be no emission. So this is our mask for our emission. This is how we're going to get that fire. And so if we get rid of this, you can already kind of see where the noise is showing up and where it isn't. Now, it's not very strong. The emission is not very strong. So what we can do is we can do a multiply. So Shift A, multiply, math. I think you just do a math node, add, and we're gonna go to multiply. And here we can go, I like to do 1,000. And you can do even more if you want it to be even brighter. But now that is emitting light, and we can turn off some of our lights here to see that this is actually emitting light on our sword or on our barrel. It's not emitting much light on the sides, so what we can do is we can go into edit mode here, and I'm gonna loop select this, and I'm gonna scale on the Y. I'm gonna scale on the Y, and we can drag this out, right? We don't want it to scale too much on the Y, but just a decent amount on the Y. So it really looks like it's kind of shooting out, and then we can scale it on the Z. Let me zoom that in a little bit. Just have it wrap around the blade just a little bit. And then I might hit the / key to isolate this, and I'm gonna grab this, and I'm gonna just bring this up a little bit, zoom this in so that it's kind of going around the blade there. Because I don't really want it to hit the blade. We can drag that back down just a little bit, like that. And that's looking good. Now, obviously, it's very, very red here, so I want to bring this, and we can go, honestly, to constant on this, and really just get this to line up. And once we get that perfect spot, we'll go back to ease. Kind of nice orange color there. That's looking good. We can see what this looks like right here. You can see what that looks like right there. And now you can start manipulating your noise texture here. So your roughness is going to add a lot more smaller details in. A low roughness is going to be bigger shapes, so great for like a plasma blaster or something along those lines. And what we really want here, let's make sure that we're seeing the color here. So I'm going to get rid of the surface, and we're going to see the actual shape of our fire. And I want this to be 4D so that we can kind of change where we're at without changing the scale or anything like that. And last but not least, we're going to go Control T, and we're going to get a mapping node here. This is just going to keep the same, keep it ungenerated. And this way we can move this. Oh, that's scale. We want to go to location. So Control Z, go to location. I think it's X. Nope, Z. So we want it to shoot out like that, right? But we also don't want it to be at the scale that it's at. So I'm going to drop the scale down to something like this, and we want our detail up a little bit here, and our roughness, we want that actually up a lot. We want the roughness up like that. That's great. Laconarity, or yeah, I think that's laconarity. I think that's how you say it. This is gonna add a lot more little kind of details into it. Distortion is gonna make it kind of wispy and might blur everything out. So I don't really like to use much distortion, but getting that roughness up is really gonna get those kind of small fire details in here. So what we wanna do here is we want to get this to where we find a nice big flame. So I'm dropping the scale down here until we get a nice big flame right in the center. And we want this to be really pretty tight. And so we can use our X location here to find like a big blob of fire. See how we have a big blob right there? You can press Shift and hold it to really kind of move this along. And then you can use the W by holding Shift to kind of manipulate that a little bit as well. And with this, we're going to be keyframing a lot of our material here. This material is going to be what's getting changed. So I'm going to set this to 10,000 and just see what that does. If that doesn't do anything, oh, it looks like the max is, no, we can set 10,000. Yeah, that's great. So that's really giving a really hot fire. Now what I am going to do is we're going to come to 0 on our timeline, and we are going to hold on our X location or Z location, right? We're going to hit I at 0 because we know that this is where we want the explosion of fire to look like. And we'll drag that out to just somewhere in our timeline. And then here, back at 1 on our timeline, we're going to drag the Z back in to right about here, because we know that that's the start of our of that one flame. And I'm going to hit I. And so now we have a keyframe there. But the problem is we don't want this other fire to be there. So right here, back at the beginning, or the middle, I guess, where our fire is showing up, and you can make sure you're on that keyframe by using this. What we want is we want to set the position of each of these on the color ramp. So you can set the position on here, or you can set the value of the multiplier. But I think that setting the position on these is going to be easier. So click on your color ramp, click on the white, go over the position and hit I, click on the black, go over the position and hit I. And then here back at frame 1, we're going to change where these are. So I want to take the white all the way up, and I want to take the black all the way up to where there's 0. We're going to hit I, and that way we have flames coming out. And then right here, go forward a little bit, we're going to set our Z, holding shift, forward to like right, make sure it's going out the end, right there, I. And so on this, we have our keyframes set, and we can manipulate how fast they go later, right? Right now it's pretty slow, it's taking a second. Right now we're just trying to dial this in. So the fire is coming out, and what we want is it to go back at the end. So right on this keyframe, make sure we're there. We're going to drag this back forward and drag this back forward until there's nothing, we can't see anything, right? So then we're gonna go I, make sure that those keyframes are set as well. And so it fades in and fades out. Now, one problem I do have is right here, this fire, I don't wanna see that. I only want it to come from there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back to these, and this is just a little bit of cleanup, right? Right there, and we're gonna set I for this keyframe, boom, boom. So that the fire really is coming from the barrel. And this should also all be a lot faster, less than a second. Control Z. We want all of this, that and this, all scale like that, so that the fire really looks like it's shooting out really fast, really quick, nice little explosion, nice little tail end. And you can change this as you see fit. This is completely subjective. Now we can turn our lights back on, and we can see what that looks like here. You got fire coming out of the barrel. Now we need smoke. The smoke is what's going to tell us kind of more of the velocity of everything. The smoke is also going to look really weird as far as the actual shape of the cylinder, right? So what we're going to do with that is right where this is at, tab, we want to tab. We're going to go Shift A, mesh, another cylinder, scale it down. I'm going to set the scale before we're going to rotate it at 90. I'm going to go Shift A on scale first before we apply our new material on here, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the last one. So I'm going to go 3. I'm going to grab our 2 end faces, X, F for getting rid of the faces. And then I'm going to hit 2 to grab this edge loop, Alt select or Option select that edge loop, and I'm going to extrude out. We want to go further out than the fire is to about there. We're going to grid fill that. 1, select that. We're going to scale this up actually a lot. Scale this up to about there. GX, get that pretty rounded. That's fine. Control R, get some edge loops in this, to quite a few here. And these edge loops towards the end are what we really want to mess with, and we want to scale this up. Shift X. So we really want it to not manipulate the X scale, just this scale. Let's scale that up a little bit too. That's fine. Tab, right click, shade smooth. It doesn't really matter, you're not really gonna see it. We're only gonna see what's inside it. And the reason that we're doing this is so that we also want it to be, the fire to be inside this at all times. So we can come in here, we can loop select that, scale on the Y axis, out. Except I don't want to grab this. So we're gonna actually select this, scale Y out, that's fine. Scale Y out, and loop select this, scale Y out. We want the fire to be inside that for sure. I might even scale this one a little bit, scale Y. There we go, tab. So now we have the smoke inside, or the fire inside the smoke. And we're gonna go on this new cylinder, and we're gonna call this smoke, new material smoke 1. And with this, we can delete the principled BSDF, go to volume, take this out to a volume scatter. And we're gonna kind of set up the same setup as far as the density goes, right? So we're gonna take this density out to a color ramp, and the color ramp out to a noise texture. And the noise texture, Control T to a mapping node so that we can manipulate this outwards as well. When it comes to animating the smoke, we're going to start with animating the location. Make sure that your texture coordinate is set to generated into vector of the mapping node. And I have my noise texture with 4D noise. That way I can manipulate the noise itself, kind of the seed value of the noise, if you will. I am not going to animate my color ramp until I have the movement of the mapping node kind of set up the way I want it to be set up. So right here, we want to be able to see our noise, our smoke. So we're going to use our color ramp to try and figure out where we want that to be. We're going to change our roughness and our lacunarity, have it be a little bit more wispy. We might be able to take the roughness up a decent amount. And then another thing that we want to do is really hone this in, right? So what I want to do is I want to delete all the keyframes that I have there. I ran into some issues trying to get this all set up, so I had to go look at my previous project file when I was making this. So what we want to do is we really want to set up how the smoke is going to look. And I like this right here. I also like this right here. This looks fine. You can also take that scale up if you want to see a little bit more. I think that this looks good. The thing is, what we're trying to do is make sure that we have an off part where there is no smoke and then the smoke comes out, right? That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to set a keyframe. We're going to drag that keyframe to the start frame. I'm going to move forward to the end of the fire coming out, maybe about 15 frames here. And we are going to use the Z to animate that smoke out. Right there should be fine. I'm going to hit I. So now we have that keyframe. That's what we're looking for. Right about here, I want to kind of slow the smoke down just a little bit. So we're going to drag it back as if the fire itself is really what's causing that smoke. And then I'm going to hit I on the mapping node. And this way we get a little bit of speed up like that. Now what we want to do is we really want to mask this out. So I want the smoke really to only show up when the bullet is fired, right? Like that looks great. And I want this to be linear, at least the most of it to be linear. So this right here will be right click, interpolation mode, linear, and then it can kind of ease a little bit towards the end because we're gonna fade it out anyways. Boom, boom, that looks great. Now, what I want to do is I want to have zero smoke showing up. So I'm gonna not even animate this white part of the color ramp. I'm only going to animate the black node. So right here, I'm gonna set a key. I'm gonna click on the black node. I'm gonna hit I over position to set a keyframe. And actually, we want this keyframe to be right here. So I'm gonna just move there and go I. I'm gonna move here and go I. Oh, Control Z, I. There we go. Now I'm going to, on the first keyframe here, I'm going to move this black node up because that is getting rid of the visibility of our smoke. I'm gonna set a keyframe there, and then I'm gonna come here right when this smoke stops, which is frame 15, I'm also going to drag the black node up until we don't see any smoke and set another keyframe. And this way we will get smoke showing up and then kind of disappearing. And what we can do with these keyframes is we can kind of move these wherever we want them to be. And I wouldn't mind seeing the smoke show up a little bit earlier and then fading out faster. Now, so that's kind of our first animation with the fire, second animation with the smoke, and then the release will be done in a similar way using a volume shader, and we will be using a torus for that. So playing this animation, that's kind of how it looks. And if you want to speed that up in any way, you totally can. You just select the different, all of your different, see, we have, this is our fire, and this is our smoke. We can name those right now. Fire, oh, got caps lock on, fire, enter, smoke, 1, enter. That's great. What we can do is we can select both of those using control, and you're gonna see all of the keyframes in here. So you can go all, move your cursor over to frame 1 and just hit scale, and this should scale them down, and that'll make it faster, right? You can go back to our smoke, and you can see it's a lot quicker. Now what I might wanna do is have this hang out for longer so that you can see the smoke for a little bit longer. And another thing we might want to do is scale these up so that it's coming out a little bit more faster, as if it is expanding. Now right there, you do see that the smoke shows up, but it does not start moving right away, and that's something that we don't like. So I'm gonna click on this, I'm gonna click this, I'm gonna right click and go interpolation mode, linear, because I really want it to start moving right away. So another way you can start getting it to move faster, or before you start seeing it, is move the keyframes back, and that way it will really be kind of moving together. Now we are getting a little bit of a weird ramp up there. So another thing we can do is move that back to 1, come here to our graph editor, and on the smoke shader node, we're worried only about the Z location. I'm gonna hit N to hide this side panel, and then you can hold Control and middle mouse button to kind of stretch this. And that's what I want. I would really want to just see this right here. This is the node that we have going on here. What I'm wondering is if we don't just delete this keyframe and we only have 2 keyframes there. Let's give that a shot first. So we're going to come back to our timeline. I'm going to clicking on this, making sure I'm on my mapping node, delete those, and that seems to be a lot better. My one problem I do have here is how fast this is leaving. So I might take this right here and move this back to there. And so it's still it's a little bit more of a fade out. Now, if we go back to our graph editor here, and I'm going to click on the mapping node, I'm going to click on the Z location. What we can do with these now is set them to be, right now we have it snapping on. I don't really want that. I want to actually make these Bezier, and I'm going to grab this handle and I'm going to go GX, and we're just going to move that right back onto the initial keyframe. So it should start linear and then slow down as it comes out. And that's good. That's kind of something that we want. You can even have this one slide back a little bit, and we should be able to control and middle mouse drag up to kind of stretch that to see what that looks like. And that should kind of ramp down the speed of the smoke, which the smoke should be going down in speed. Now, another thing that I wouldn't mind giving a shot here is with this roughness or the distortion here, I wouldn't mind coming and setting a keyframe here on the distortion, I, and then coming over to, it's about frame 15, frame 14 that all of this is ending, coming and setting I as another keyframe, and just slightly, very slightly holding shift, moving that up a little bit, and we can just mark that keyframe. And so I'm wondering if that will add some warp to our smoke, a little extra secondary movement going on. Another thing that I'm not liking is how fast that smoke is showing up. That smoke is not showing up at the correct time. So I might click on our shader or our timeline here, and with the mapping node selected, let's drag this out a little bit so that the fire has time to show up and it looks more like the fire's causing the smoke. That's what we want. Now we can come back to this and we can drag this kind of over as well. Let's shift select these. And right now, let's select this and just get this. Let's go all 4. And on this one, let's change that distortion down to about 0. Hit I. This is going to be a little finicky, right? We're just trying to figure out what is going to cause the smoke to look as realistic as possible. The nice thing about this is all a sub 1 second animation. So in shooting it, you're getting the effect that you're looking for. No one's going to, during the entire process, really see that the smoke is just slightly showing up, right? They're going to get the idea. And we honestly might even take that, this, and drag all of this out just a little bit further, because I really want the fire to show up first and the smoke to show up second. I want the fire to really be act 1, and or you know, the smoke will be a recall, right? It's like a response, call and response. Fire's the call, the smoke is the response, like that. And I'm okay moving it back slightly just so that we can get some of the fire really like lighting up our smoke. That would be really nice to have. And the third and final part of this animation, now that we have our smoke done, is going to be a torus. And so I'm going to come here, Shift A, Mesh, Torus, scale down, rotate Y, 90. And it can be pretty darn small. G, X, I. We can have that on frame 1. And I'm okay with turning on snapping here. That's fine, whatever. And then we're going to drag it on the Z axis at around 13 to 15 frames, right? G, X, scale, have it up like that, and just set an I. So this is going to zoom out like that. And honestly, we can have it further out than that. G, X, I. Now these, we can come here, graph editor. What I want to do with this specifically, this torus movement, which we got to just make sure that we are messing with the torus location right here. So that's the only thing I really want to focus on. Torus location. I want it to slow down. GX on that handle. So it starts out fast and slows down. The smoke should be the one that's causing the smoke ring to show up. That's great. Now with this torus, You can shade it smooth if it just looks better in your viewport. You're not really going to be seeing the faces of this. We're going to come down and we're going to do another, this we're going to call Smoke 2. Smoke 2. Delete the principled ESDF. In the volume, we're going to put a volume scatter, and that's it. You can do the density thing with the noise texture. I don't see a need for it. We are going to take its density down quite a bit, something like that. We want it to really match the noise. And this is going to show up with the smoke. One thing we will do is set up a color ramp. Oh, honestly, we don't even have to do that. We can just animate the density here. So at 0 frame 1, we're going to have the density. Well, let's come to about here and we'll set density at 220. So I'm just going to click I. We're going to come back to, well, we'll go forward to right about here and we're going to click I on this I. And now we have the keyframe set for that. Let's get out of this. Let's go to our timeline and let's click on our volume scatter so we can actually see what we're working on here. And then here, what I would like is right about here, I want the density to be 0, and I'm going to set I. And right about here, I want the density to be 0 as well, and we're going to set I. And so this can be if you are looking at your camera, a great way to get fire, smoke, and a smoke ring coming out of your barrel. Now, framing this up so that it works, or scaling each of these individual assets up to match the size of the explosion that you're looking for, that will be totally up to the senior setting, but you can also move your camera in. So grab my camera, let's grab the camera. Am I in edit mode right now? No, I'm not. GZZ. Move it in, G out to here. And that is a great way to get a nice little animation of fire without having to run any simulations. And it's a repeatable thing. So you have all those keyframes saved and you can either duplicate this object and just have its alpha turn on and off every time you need a firing animation, or you can just duplicate the keyframes. That might get a little convoluted because it's on you're moving things back and forth. So that can get a little bit annoying, but this is a great way to have easy animation. I'm going to move this forward a little bit so that the smoke ring really is forming out of the rest of the smoke. And I will come here to the graph editor, and I think I'm going to slow that down. What is this? Z scale? Is that what this is? Yeah, I think I want this to match the scale to match the, we're going to go GX, and let's zoom out. Let's go back to our timeline here, and let's set this to 20 frames. One thing I will say is I think that I have too much of a slowdown on this, so I'm going to hit G and just drag that handle back a little bit. And let's just see how that looks. And I think that looks really good. Now, another thing to add some realism to the smoke ring, because smoke rings aren't perfectly round, is scaling up some of these sides, scaling down some other sides, right? That can also add a little bit more realism where it might look a little bit better. A little bit less perfect, because there's not much perfection in reality. I might grab this and scale this down. Let's scale that up. We'll scale that down right there, and we'll scale this up a little bit. That should be fine. And having a non-perfect smoke ring will definitely make this look a lot more realistic. I will say that getting the Smoke 2 shader here, the density, oh, that's what that is. That's the density. I thought I was moving the Z. That's totally fine. Let's drag this out. So it slowly kind of fades, but we also don't want it to stop. So I'm going to grab I think this is the Z. Yeah, Z scale right there. We're going to drag this out as well. So it's still going up, it's still getting taller, and we'll drag this out as well so that it's really kind of just like floating out there. And we can, I'm not liking how it's kind of slowing down so early. I really want it to be just as fast as everything else. So I might drag this out. Bam. And then it kind of slowly fades out. I think that looks a lot better. So yeah, a nice little way to create first, second, and third little animation, little 3D animation for your guns. There you go, you guys. I hope this is a helpful tutorial for you and helps those of us that don't have crazy good computers run cool things that look like simulations that don't require simulation.